If you listen to the last episode of the SLO County Real Estate Podcast, you know that getting a new homeowners policy is a bit of a challenge recently, but some indicators on the horizon suggest it won't last long. While home values across California are falling in many of the metros, it's important to note that here in SLO County, we have not seen a ripple effect. JT gives us some solid reasoning as to why on this episode of the SLO County Real Estate Podcast with Hal Sweasey. Here's your host, James Bueno.
And here we are once again at SLO County Real Estate with Mr. Hal Sweasey. We're all here, luckily, in this beautiful day. Hal, how you doing?
I'm great, James. It's fun to be here already.
JT, how are you?
Happy to be here. Hope to help the team win. Good Lord willing, everything will work out.
That's right. Mr. Pete, how are you?
Great. Swinging for the fences.
Sweet. What, baseball analogy, so
love
early.
It, Jay.
Yeah.
Way to go, baby.
Yeah.
Mr. Kingman, how are you, sir?
Doing good, guys. It's nice to be here with you on this
Well, how are you,
gray afternoon.
You know
again.
what?
James? Nobody ever
Thank
asked
you. Thank you. Nobody ever asks me.
How you doing?
That is really unfair.
I'm
of us.
doing wonderful.
You are kind enough to ask everyone
I am.
how we're doing, and we're like, okay.
You know, I'm going to go out and say I'm a great guy.
We hope you're
I
doing
appreciate that.
Somebody was not going to say it, so you had to fill it in. Thank you.
No, I didn't see it in any of your faces.
Hey, you're good at marketing, and
Thank you.
we know you're a great volleyball coach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We do know
I
that.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. And then to start off the podcast today, JT, you gave everybody fist bumps, which was kind of nice. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
let's get ready, man.
That's
There we
right.
go.
I'm super stoked. Hal,
I'm ready to rumble.
what do you got? I think we're going to talk about real estate today, aren't we?
Yeah. That's probably is a good idea for us. That's where our limit. We go a little bit outside real estate.
Wait,
Yeah,
a little,
very little bit.
a little bit outside
Yeah,
today.
we don't have self-awareness on how other people feel, but we do have self-awareness when it comes to a little bit about real estate.
Let's hope.
Yeah. So I wanted to update because the insurance situation with many underwriters and insurance companies not providing homeowners and occupancy and fire insurance. We've had a few examples of what's going on, and so we thought we'd kind of bring that back to the forefront.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to listen in to a Zoom meeting with the state insurance commissioner this week.
Wow.
There was a lot of word salad in that hour, but what I could take,
Word salad.
meaning a lot of words used, but not much said.
Oh, just a lot of
Yeah, a lot of-
iceberg lettuce.
And nobody liked it. 'cause
Yeah.
it's salad.
Okay.
But what I did get from that Zoom meeting was, this isn't going to go away today, but I also think it's temporary. The challenges of securing fire insurance. I think the insurance commissioner understands that insurance companies need rates in order to open back up.
Sure.
So how long that will take, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping it'll be temporary. But how in your business here, you've opened and closed some escrows since we taped the last podcast about the insurance challenges, and what have you found?
Well, before we jump into that, JT, I'm just curious. So you make that claim that you think it's temporary, but it sounds like if I heard you speaking before, you have some experience in these types of things, right? So this is not our first time.
Yeah, this is not the first time that some of the major carriers in the state kind of rolled back their desire to grow their business because of disaster, political events, rates. I'm hoping that this will be short-lived, but certainly maybe months rather than years.
Short-lived like our radio career? Is that like that? Okay.
So I try to be, kind of a half full kind of guy rather than half empty. So I'm hoping it's months rather than years.
Yeah, but I think you made a reference to the Northridge earthquakes in the late 80s or something. That was a huge loss to a lot of people, and I guess obviously the insurance companies, right?
Yeah, well, you stop and think an earthquake can bring an insurance company that has that as a risk to its knees in a matter of seconds. The one company that I know the most about has been in business for 100 years. You take the hurricane in Florida that happened in 1993. I think it was Andrew, and Andrew wiped out the largest insurance company in Florida in one storm. Wiped out 100 years of profit.
Wow.
In one storm. And so if it wasn't for that company's auto insurance affiliate come in and save it, they would have been belly up.
So I'll answer you. So what have I seen? Yeah, a couple of things. Nothing too major yet. I've heard of worse things, but we've just seen some delays. Like, okay, yeah, we're going to write the insurance, but the lender that's writing the loan, who always wants the insurance, because remember the lender is a big owner in the house. If you're getting 80 or 70 or 60% financing, they're a majority owner along with the buyer. They might say, hey, we need to see the actual, written policy or things like that versus, being able to do it quickly. So that was one thing. Another thing that actually surprised me, we have a client that has a home in escrow, and it's a 2,300 square foot house. It's going to go in the high over $1 million mark, and they got their insurance quote right away. Now, I don't know, John, if you get the quote, because I didn't follow it that much previously, if that's a good sign that that's going to be underwritten. Is that usually a good sign?
Well, the fact that they'll quote it is a good sign.
So, and that was like $2,800 for a year for on a really nicely upgraded 2,300 square foot house, detached garage, that sort of thing, little guest unit. So to me, that didn't seem too bad because I think my insurance on my little house is like $2,000 or something like that. So it wasn't as bad as I was expecting.
And was that a house in city limits?
Yeah.
In a lot block.
City limits. It was in the city of San Luis Obispo.
San Luis, okay, got it.
Yeah.
One of the things that the people in California don't realize is how low our homeowners insurance rates are.
Oh, really?
Compared to other states. Like if you'd bought that same policy, let's take Texas, for example, I would guess in Texas it's 2 to 3 times.
Really?
You go into Florida, might be 4 or 5 times.
Because of extreme weather.
Why?
Yeah, the exposure to risk. I mean, what do you have in Texas?
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes and what else?
The
That we don't
floods.
think about here very often.
Stampedes. I don't know.
Hail.
Hail. Oh, yeah.
Hail
Oh,
is
yeah.
a
Size of
big
golf
deal.
balls.
Hail's a big time risk in some parts of the country.
What about earthquakes and fire?
Well, they have the same exposure to fire. I wouldn't say they have the same exposure to earthquake that
Yeah.
we have in California, but also earthquakes excluded from
It's
the
a
California
separate
homeowner
policy.
policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
So-
flooding.
Flooding
My
is separate
family in
policy.
Houston, lots of floods.
Well,
right?
and flooding you can't get through normal carriers like the Allstate, State Farm, Auto Club. You have to get flood insurance through the U.S. government.
yeah.
It's the only place you can get it. So $2,800. 10 years ago, that would have sounded like a lot. Today, no, that sounds like a pretty good price.
Yeah. Well, the cost of rebuilding something has gone up significantly.
Considerably, yeah.
Yeah, the replacement cost.
Yeah.
The good news is, and I should have the statistics, I think we've seen very few fires. And again, this is just anecdotal. I don't know. I don't keep track. But and again, there's more than, when you get your insurance, more than just fire. There's liability, there's theft, there's all sorts of protections you get by having that insurance. It does cover a lot.
Well, sometimes insurance is calculated based on what happens yesterday, but how should it be calculated?
What's going to happen tomorrow?
What's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
So we have incredible models today that map out almost every property in the state and can gauge single individual properties about their exposure to wildfire.
Predictive analytics.
Yeah.
And when you're saying we, you're referring to like the insurance
The
company
insurance
because you
industry.
lived in that industry for so
I
long.
still say we, even
I
though
know.
I've been retired from that industry for 7 years. It's a habit. So,
Well, you say that about the Giants too, right?
well, I can say we. I
Yeah.
got my own Giants uni.
Yeah, right.
Hal, you made comment to you were quoting the insurance you paid or that was purchased
Quoted.
for a home. Yeah, quoted for a home here in city. I know that I've got a very good friend who lives outside the city limits who had a lapse in his fire insurance, and his policy the year before was $1,800 just for fire, and he couldn't get insured, and it was $18,000 to get it insured.
Here's a big don't. Don't let your insurance lapse.
Yeah.
We were talking about the major carriers who've said we're not going to write business right now. And if your policy lapses with those major carriers, guess what?
You're out.
They're not going to take you back. My guess is that it's going to cost you more to go find it away from where you were.
Yeah.
So do not let your homeowner's insurance lapse under any circumstances.
To be ultra cautious with that note, if you're changing vesting in a piece of real property, you say you put your property from your name into a irrevocable family trust or a corporation or an LLC for other tax advantages, that's a different owner. Does the insurance company have to issue a new policy?
If the insurance company has to issue a new policy, that would require an application, and they aren't accepting any applications.
Yeah, so that's something to be very cautious of.
There have been some people here in the last week or so that have thought about, putting their home in an LLC, and the insurance agents waving their arms going, no, don't do it.
I wouldn't even had this conversation with my clients or anybody in my sphere a year ago. It would have been, put it in an LLC. All your investment properties should be under their own LLC. So if somebody trips and falls and sues you, it's a firewall to protect you from losing all your personal assets or your other properties. But in today's world, you got to talk to your insurance carrier first. You could not have insurance on your investment properties. Holy smokes.
Yeah, that's a bigger loss potentially.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a total loss it could be.
It's a brave new world.
One of the things that I hear from our buyer's agents recently is, people out there deciding that waiting to buy their next house, is their strategy.
It is a strategy.
It is a strategy. How often do you think that strategies work, Jay?
It works when you're fly fishing. That's it.
So let's go back in history a little bit. Here in San Luis Obispo to 2018. And, in prior podcasts, I've shared with you some of my frustrations with the term median home prices.
It could be a skewed median in what area or community.
Yeah.
They're really,
half the homes sold for under this amount, half the homes sold for over this amount, right?
yeah.
So in 2018, the median home price in San Luis Obispo was $720,000, and a year later, it was up to $732,000, and a year after that, $753,000, and a year after that, $789,000. So 4 years later, if you bought a house in 18 at the median home price of $720,000, and the home values followed the median price, which isn't always true, but if it did, your home would be worth $789,000, and how would you feel?
Great. That's an absolute win.
720 to 789.
$789,000.
Yeah.
What is that? 69,000.
Yeah, over 60,000.
About 10%.
10%, yeah.
Okay, I can do that math.
Your home value went up 10%. How would you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah.
Great.
Good.
I mean, that's a solid
Not
investment.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a year after that, it went from 789 to $1,035,000.
Wow.
That is from May of 21 to May of 22. Now
Wow.
we know what happened from May of 21 to May of 22.
Yeah.
It was almost like a feeding frenzy.
Sure.
Out there, right?
Yeah. Big jump.
Lot of homes that were in competitive situations when they were for sale because you had multiple buyers who wanted that home, and what happened to prices?
Yeah. They went up.
They went up.
Skyrocket.
They went up.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. Simple economics, right? Okay, so a year later, the median sales price in San Luis Obispo was $939,000.
Uh-oh.
No, this guy is falling.
Now, let me ask you: are you ahead $220,000, or are you behind $95,000?
Well, if you bought in 2018, you're still way ahead of the game.
You're way ahead.
Yeah.
But you're reading the newspaper, and the newspaper's saying, "Oh, the sky is falling. Home prices in San Luis Obispo down 10%." And are they? But here's the but. What was going on from 2018 to 2022 as those median home sales prices were going up? What was going on in the interest rate environment?
Down. The rates were plummeting.
If they weren't plummeting, they were down and stayed down.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
They
And
were
they're
there.
just trying to
They were
stimulate
at
the
all-time
economy.
historic lows.
All-time lows for those years.
Under
Yeah.
3%, you can't buy a car and finance it for that.
What were we calling it? We're the crash. Oh yeah, I'm here, right? Been doing this a while. 18. Oh, it's going to crash. 19. Oh, it's going to crash. And we would jokingly say, yeah, the market has already crashed because interest rates are like 3%. We've already had the crash. The rates are super low, which has benefited home values for sure.
So between May of 22 and May of 23, when median home sales prices in San Luis Obispo went down, almost $100,000, what happened to interest rate?
They doubled.
Okay, so when interest rates go up, what happens to individuals' buying power?
Decreased exponentially.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
to the degree of the rate increase, right? You lose about $100,000 in buying power for every point that the rate goes either up. If it goes up, you're going down in purchase price, depending on its value.
As interest rates went up, is it true that home values went down, or is it true that the properties that people were able to buy were on the lower end?
Which means that middle group it was much broader. So your sample set is going to be in the lower range.
So in December of 21, your rates are like 3%. Let's just call it 3. We're guessing, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then 6 months later, you're paying 5.5, middle of 22.
Yeah.
So the house I was looking at for $700,000, now I can only afford $600,000.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's
you
like
bought a $600,000 house, not a $700,000 house, and therefore the median home price just went down.
right.
Yet you didn't buy the $700,000 house because that home value didn't go down. You just couldn't afford it.
It's like eggs. Eggs went up to whatever, a dozen. They got super expensive. Like they doubled, right?
6.
So instead of buying 12, I'm buying 6.
Sure.
Right?
So the question is, do median home prices equal home values?
I'm going to say no. I don't think the value in
But-
the house goes down.
Well, I don't want to steal your thunder because, I mean, this is a
No.
great example. The real issue is, are you better off having done something sooner rather than later?
Are you better off having bought the house in 2018?
In spite of that, yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Hands down.
So I would suggest that living here in this marketplace and being around Hal and your team from 22 to 23, I don't think home values in San Luis Obispo went down. I think the houses that sold were the lower value houses because that's what people could afford.
I mean, I always call it, how much does it cost to build a house, right? And I always say, well, how much are groceries?
Well,
It depends on what's in the bag. Right?
You listed a house
Yep.
in the Anholm district that's currently on the market.
Yeah.
It went on the market for just under 1.6, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you a couple months ago or a month ago, if you'd have listed that house a year ago, would you have listed it at 1.6 or less or at 1.6 or more? And a year ago, you said you would have listed it for less.
Most likely, yeah.
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 Yet the median home price went down in the last year.
Yeah.
So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right. Yeah.
Is I don't think home values in San Luis Obispo have gone down, even though the houses that are selling.
Depends on, and also depends on price and location. I think the bigger point is you don't buy a house on average and live there a year.
Right.
And over a short term, that's 5 years you did there, 18 to 23?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in 5 years, your equity went up, your house payment's been fixed. What other benefits? You pay down your principal.
Well, where
There's
were
a
we
lot of
supposed to?
benefits.
I think one of the reasons the prices went so high is because where were we supposed to shelter during the pandemic? In
Yeah.
our home, and everybody realized that, oh man, if I'm going to be, I lived in the city because I like the theater and the restaurants and the night. Well, there's none of that's happening,
Right.
And so there was a huge swell of people that came to San Luis County, and I think it drove a lot of the pricing. And everybody that moved here is stoked they did. I haven't run into a single person that moved here from outside the area that said, "I'm so bummed I moved to San Luis."
Moving back to the
I'm
city.
moving back to San
I need to
Francisco.
get back to San Francisco.
I'm buying a hotel in San Francisco because they're giving it to me.
Right.
So here's the question I've been leading up to with all this. And I'd like to hear Jay's opinion of what transpired this week with the inflation numbers and the Fed not taking a hike or going down with the rates. What's this look like a year from now, 2024? Is the median home price going to go up or down? Are home values going to go up or down? What do you think?
Wow, this is being recorded, huh? It's like the predictor. Where's the crystal
I
ball?
wanted to put you on the spot.
Ooh, we're
Did
about up on our 1 year thing.
We
with
are.
rates, right?
Yeah.
When was that? Ended
I'll
June?
have to look at. I'll look it up while you guys
yeah.
have
Thank
this
you.
discussion.
Ended
Hal,
June.
are you glad
I'm
I-
in the money on that one. I'm just telling you right now. I don't prognosticate, but I'm just going to claim victory early, 2 weeks early.
Hey,
You're
Hal,
already taking the
I'll-
victory lap up.
I'll bet you you're glad I asked Jay that question and not you. Huh?
Okay, so the inflationary rate is dropped considerably because we're talking about a 12-month rolling average, right? So great news. Fed meets. They were talking about raising the interest rate a quarter point. They meet. They come out of the meeting. We're not raising the rate. Economy's on the right path. We got other people that are much smarter than me that have already predicted all of these things that we're hearing. Rates we're going to see adjusted. We're going to see them low 5s by the end of the year. Or mid 5s. And so what is that going to do to the market? It's going to bring buyers in that have been sitting on the fence, that have been listening to this podcast going, gosh, I just can't afford to get in. Well, and we keep telling, I'll preach this to the end of days, and that is, if you can get into a house at 7% interest, you're going to have far less competition. Do it. Get off the fence. Make the purchase. And then when the rates come down to 5.5, you refinance. Let's say in the pricing difference, you spend $500 a month extra on a higher rate. So you've got a higher rate for, even if it's 10 months, you're talking about $5,000. when you look at the appreciation you're going to get in the asset over that period of time, and when the rates come down and now all of a sudden there's bidding wars and prices are going up like they did between 20 and 21, you're going to have so much gain. That $5,000 investment that you thought you were really stretching for, you thought you might have been overpaying for, is now worth $100,000. That is an incredible rate of return. I'd buy that investment all day long.
Are you going to ask me? Do I get a shot at this?
Hal, what do you think?
Well, and then here's the thing. I'm quoting stuff that I just get glimpses of, right? But I think I read somewhere that the rate of this consumer price index, the last one was 4%.
CPI, yeah.
Right, CPI.
Yeah, that's what I
and
read.
the same time last year was 9%. So the rate of growth is going way down, right? So it seems like all these things they put into place are working. The cost of money makes a difference. And then we don't see a lot of new homes going up. And then we don't see a lot of people that really want to sell. We're seeing more mobility, which is good, because if it gets easier to sell, and it's easier when you can get a cheap rate, and it's, it's like if you had to go trade your car in, but you got to pay 25% interest, you're probably just going to keep your car in whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it puts a resistance on that. We might get some more turnover if rates get lower. That should help the market. At the same time, it'll bring buyers in. So it would be nice for us. But I'm going to say that we're likely to see appreciation, because if you would have had this conversation last year, it's about June, things changed so fast because we had never seen those rates go up so fast. People were in the headlights just frozen, kind of like when COVID happened and like the stock market went way down and then it bounced back, so it's so easy to get that panic. I don't sense that right now, and things can change so fast, either up and down. Anyway,
It's funny. We're a month away from last year's prediction episode.
Oh, okay.
It was on the 14th of July. So
I like my chances.
I don't remember. I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember what I had for breakfast.
I think I had the highest rate. I guessed the highest rate. Yeah. I'm pretty self-serving. I think I'm going to call Jerome Powell and just say, hey, can you just bump it up one more time before my podcast on July 15th.
people, huh?
Just for you.
Just,
So you've
hey,
been pulling the strings all along.
I call him Jerry. Wins are so rare for me that I need this.
I found out yesterday that one of our listeners called in and wanted to talk to Hal about listing their property. So
Yeah, we are. And are we?
So I
listening?
thought that was pretty cool.
That's one thing we don't really talk about very often. Like there's people, Hal on this podcast, and the podcast is named after him. This is great information for the listeners, but if you need the services for a professional,
Right.
of a real estate professional, Hal and his team are here. Make the call. He can help.
Fun for us to do, and we're glad it helps the community. And I haven't had much constructive feedback except when I go home. So that's, but it's good. And
That's more than the podcast.
but I would just like to say this, because I think what John does is really important, because it's easy to just get a snapshot of something and kind of be worried. But when you really think about it and you put numbers on paper, the examples he gives, and they're valid examples, are a powerful statement about starting soon. And whether that's buying a house or starting a savings plan or eating better, or like when you train volleyball players, they go, hey, I'm 15, I'm going to wait till I'm 20 till I start practicing. No, you start now.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
Right? So anything you want to do well, and owning home is for most people seems like a nice thing to do or a smart thing to do. It's just time in.
Time over task. Yeah.
So thanks, John.
Should I give the example I gave before we went on the air?
$1 million.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if I have a fairly new grandchild. She's 2 now, but if you wanted to start saving at the second someone was born, so that they would have $1 million at age 70, and your rate of return was 10%, which is about what the S&P 500 historical rate of return has been, how much would you have to save per month to have $1 million at age 70?
Ooh, I know this.
James is going to cheat it. Okay, James, what's the answer?
I'm going to tell you, I guessed 10.
You guessed $10, and
guessed.
you were wrong.
I was wrong, but I was close.
You were close. Yeah. $8 a month
That's crazy.
to be a millionaire at age 70. $8 a month. It's always better to start sooner, whether you're investing in real estate, the stock market, or just a savings plan for college. Start sooner rather than later.
The power of compounding interest, yeah.
Right. Well, there's one where with the 100 envelopes as well.
How's that going?
I don't even know.
We're 300 days into that.
He's driving a van now. He's got so many envelopes.
This might be indicative of the economy. We started it, and then we decided to pull some money out of
You're right.
the
Yeah.
envelopes.
Yeah, talk to my boss
It wasn't
about
a
that
savings
one.
account. It was a put and take account. I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to
Had
take it out.
no rate of return on that when you stick it in an envelope. I'm sorry.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. JT, thank you. J. Pete, Hal, Mr. Kingman, I appreciate it. It's been fun. As always, you can get a hold of Hal at halsweasey.com or Hal at teamsweasey.com. He doesn't like that email. It's giving me a funny face. And then we do have a phone. You can call. It's old school, but it still works. 805-781-3750.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody, and we will see everybody or talk to everybody next week. Thank you for listening to the Hal Sweasey podcast. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast. It comes out every Monday, so check for it in your feed for the latest information on the San Luis Obispo County market. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is available wherever you get your podcast and on halsweasey.com, where you can find current listings and other real estate tips. halsweasey.com, that's HALSWEASEY.com. I am James Bueno, Director of Marketing for the Hal Sweasey Group. If you're looking for anything real estate, give us a call, 805-781-3750.
Hal Sweasey is a licensed California real estate broker. DRE number 01111-911. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is a production of AGM Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.